Oh, that's a nice way to name people. We are live, I believe, on YouTube. I'll just check. Okay, for it's now live streaming. Yes. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Caravan. My name is Ishan Sharma, and this session today is part of the Caravan Film Appreciation Workshop that we do. We try to do every 2 months, but this is the second batch of that workshop. This workshop was curated because in the recent past we have seen the conversations around cinema go down the hill sadly in the mainstream, even in the indie world. So there's a need to revive that film society movement that happened in 1930s, 40s with Mrinal Sen, Ritvik Ghatak, and others. These conversations may or may not affect the kind of media that will be produced in future with a more discerning audience at available for the writers and the directors, so that when they say that they are making, they think what people want to see would also change. Okay, there is always a in the mainstream, the filmmakers think that they know what the majority wants to see, and that's why you see a certain kind of media being produced. These days, you have a certain kind of political media being produced in the mainstream, which kind of takes us back to the 1930s, not in India but in Europe. So today, this is an effort that we have been doing to create a new kind of audience, a new knowledgeable audience who know the history of cinema, the power of cinema, and they can also be filmmakers in future because we have seen French New Wave coming up with Kaya du Cinema, journalists turned critics turned filmmakers like Truffaut and others leading the way forward. So in this series, we have the first guest today, Atika Chohan. She is a well-known screenwriter, and you recently saw her at the SW Award giving trophies to the winners. But interestingly, she is known for one of my favorite films, Margarita with a Straw. Recently, her film Ulaj came out, starring Janvi Kapoor. It's a new kind of a mainstream film, I would say. So you can call her the disruptor of the year. And she also wrote two films which I think would come out soon in the mainstream also, Agra and Berlin. I hope that they would also get screenings.
I didn't write Berlin. I didn't write Berlin. I wrote Saheda, if that's what you said. Kind of like
Oh,
also
Sahela,
yeah, breaking it.
Sahela and Agra,
Yeah. They were in the
which were
festivals
part of
last
the
year.
festival
They-
at
Yeah,
at
they
the
were in the
Geomami
festivals
last
last
year.
year, so they may just actually find distributions maybe perhaps sometime.
So I think Sahela starts Shiva Chadda.
Yes.
Uh, and I met her during the show at the BKC. The opening show was at, I think, BKC for Sahila. But interesting that she is known for such progressive works, which uh, it's a rare occasion that you have somebody writing so progressive in the mainstream, trying to find her own niche. So today we'll try to figure out how that happens and what her journey is. She didn't start as a screenwriter. I think you were a journalist, Atika, before getting into writing films.
Yes, but that, I mean, a large part of my career has been now about writing films. So it's only for the first few years after I studied literature from Delhi University for about 5 years. I did my BA and my MA. And then I mean, that was an organic graduation because everybody in Delhi who studies literature, I'm just being a little frivolous here, but most people, graduate to journalism because that's the easiest line of work that one gets into. There is a need for, especially in the years that I'm talking about. So that was the most suitable profession for most of us, and I was lucky to have gotten a job back then. But then within like those first 2 years, by the time I was 25 or so, I knew that I didn't want to do this forever. I have a quote that I have only quoted and then I keep quoting myself, which is like the easiest way to describe that whole phase of my life is that I was the most reluctant journalist I knew in Delhi. Like I just would be, just would manage to do the work, but my heart was not in it because I think doing that job also made me uh, sort of re-understand who I was and realign to my to the purpose that was to write fiction. And what that stint with the news channel did for me was that I became extremely familiar and comfortable with the audio video medium, audio visual medium, and then that gave me some sort of like a foolish confidence that I could possibly write films. So a combination of factors that like led me to believe, like I studied literature, I was an avid reader, I loved stories, I was perhaps I had like lots to say because I had experientially gone through a lot, which something again like again that's something I believe. I don't know if that was the case, but a combination of things that around the age of 25, 26, I felt that if I don't do this now, I won't be able to do it ever. And then I dove headlong into the world of fiction writing with like first moving to letting go of like a secure job at CNNIB in Delhi and going to FTI and studying screenwriting there formally for a course that lasted like a year and a few months. So let's say a year and a half of my life. And then literally, I mean, I with that leap of faith, like proverbial leap of faith. I was in Bombay with 5,000 rupees in the bank in the year 2008, 2009. And I pretty much became a screenwriter when it was not fashionable to be one. And actually, when you say you become a screenwriter, the thing is that it's the credits that define perhaps some kind of like, a recognition of to you more than even the quality of work. So I think I want to call myself out on the fact that I think for me, it just was that one of those beginner's luck thing that I got into Bombay and I got a job on one of the Yash Raj TV shows, which was called Rishta.com. Within a year in Bombay, I had like a credit on a released show. I wrote 4 episodes of a finite series, which was very progressive for the time that I was in Bombay. And what it did, I'm not sure how good a screenwriter I was honestly back in those years because it was literally just like struggling uh, on many aspects of the life of my life. Like, of course, but it the financially like it wasn't really like it was very sorted, but it was I think it was also like those years helped me understand what kind of screenwriting do I want to do. That sort of early in made me extremely alert, almost paranoid about, oh my God, if I don't stay watchful, I'll get sucked into like any kind of banal screenwriting, and do I want to then associate myself with it, like in my appetite or with my or is it just ambition to like arrive at like a consolidated career because a person who's like in their late 20s moving into the 30s already and do not who are like I who haven't really proved themselves in their career, so there is also that pressure on you to like have a livelihood, be on your own now, and like so there was a combination of things and there were these external noises and I had to like I think use perhaps a good 2 3 years to understand who I was, where do I want to go with this, and if that means if there are certain decisions that I'm going to take about the path that I'm about to take, if that means that it's going to cut me out completely from the greatest recognition that Bollywood can provide, I will have to choose that hard path, which means that if that means that I'll never do the mainstream, I will have to do that. If that means that a lot of the mainstream powerful people will never work with me, I'll have to do that. But but and the thing was, while I made those choices, it was also like it wasn't exactly empirically clear to me that everyone who was in the indie space was also someone I wanted to work with because experientially when I actually was meeting people who were making seemingly progressive films were not very progressive in their behavior. So there were all kinds of tackiness that one was dealing with and sifting through, and like arriving at uh like you know like a like a baseline of things, like itna bhi ho jaye, like three factors if they get covered, then I'll give it everything. Like, okay, if it doesn't give me too much money, at least can it give me enough to like buy me an auto ride to the office and back, stuff like that. So essentially combination of these factors would then make me want to do a project. I would give it everything. And in the beginning a lot didn't work out, like so for about after the Yash Raj show with Rishta.com, where I had like credit on 3 episodes, um, I think I must have struggled for easily 4 before I saw a credit again, which was a Margarita with a Straw, and for which my credit on the film is Hindi dialogues, but I've done dialogues, of course. And but the thing is, I was so डरा हुआ in that sense. I remember I didn't even have a contract in place till after the film was done. I couldn't even negotiate for my money. I couldn't even negotiate for my credit. So it was more like uh, the, just the just the gratitude that I had that I got to actually be a part of something really phenomenal was something that sort of like led me to the other side of it. After that, I think I started sort of like taking slightly stronger calls with respect to what should I do now, what should I do next, what can I actually do to make money, etc. And so this is something that I also was while I also knew that this was something I was consciously was getting becoming, it was consciously like becoming clear to me that this is the path I'd like to take. What was also helpful was that because I was coming across as somebody who wasn't anyway adding to the mainstream business. There was a lot of auto subtraction at place. Like there would be no grand masti coming my way. No one would actually offer me grand masti. Like even if I would just go to that office and say I want to do it because I want to pay my rent, well, they'd be like, "You are not the right candidate. Like tell us like 5 gags in like 5 minutes," and I would really struggle. So I wasn't anyway like it. I think it was a natural sifting of things where I wasn't even like, it's not like I chose to not be there that much, but those opportunities were not coming my way. So I think it was easier in that sense. And whatever then came my way, and then to make some sense of it, was the path that I began to take. What was very difficult then, and what is even, I think it has gotten even more difficult now, is to have a mainstream female-led drama made in Bombay. Uh, I have been part of some of those because I did see some successes with like having like a miracle happen when decided to act in Chapak, or like I was a part of Guilty, which was Dharma original, where I actually, poured in a lot of my angst about what I was feeling about the Me Too movement. I've managed to be a part of some of these films, but I know each time each of these projects have been a miracle by themselves. It doesn't happen every day. Even Ulaj has been a rare film. It is a rare film. It wouldn't happen from the same production house repeatedly. Like it's not the kind of film that will get made again and again. Um, so this has been largely my journey over the 15 years, and like in those many 10 minutes, if I could say that it has largely been a journey of of having at least basic clarity on what I want to do, and um, trying to do my best to salvage what the material is at hand. I've largely look at myself like that, so I don't look at myself as a slave to form as much as I see myself as a votary of good politics. So I look at this is how I view the world, that I think it will take me another lifetime to be the person who's going to say, oh, I make this kind of cinema. That opportunity hasn't come to me yet. While I have some stories and labs, and I'm parallelly working towards those things, uh, if you have to earn a livelihood in Bombay and also sustain a career, there are other factors. So with keeping all that in mind, I feel I've made certain choices. Um, and in within those choices, from now after 16 years of a compounded like career, it looks like I may have had a few successes. It's only now that I've begun to feel, oh my God, I have managed to do something. Yes, this was something evidently what I wanted to do. But while I was going through the dark tunnel, like, or not that dark tunnel is like I'm actually through, but it didn't seem like then that I would come as far. So I find it sometimes very difficult to believe that I have had like 10 releases in like 16 years of work. It's sometimes very tough to believe because I know how hard it has been for each film that I have been on for it to get made. And it has almost been like this might not get made. And then it got through. So it has been a miracle like that. Uh, so yeah, in some sense, I am saying that a career like mine is pretty tenuous and rare. Uh, I am myself like pretty shocked every day.
No, it's definitely rare, and it's very interesting to see how far you have come along, and there's more to go. I think,
Yes,
uh,
hopefully.
there's a long road ahead, because these are just small victories. The battle is yet to be fought in the mainstream media. We have to fight a big battle for proper representation, especially um, of various
Yeah.
communities, of various genders. And it's now starting to feel that there is an attempt at writing good films, good content. However, in small these niche film festivals that we kind of attend to, which have a elite audience, of course, a very urban audience, but we also have something like Lapata Ladies being written, which talks about the ruler also. So fortunately, there's a shift happening. But I'll come to these films later on, and I'll also come to all sorts of things that you mentioned. But I want to first start with the FTII days. How were the Film Institute days for you in Pune at Prabhat?
I mean, those were the really solid days. As we all know, that the institute is not what it used to be currently. It has, when I now go to the film school, it feels like a very sanitized version of what we were. When I went to the film school, it was like a really, it was a very creative wild place, and while it may from the outside look like, oh, the students were not really into inside the classrooms, well, they shouldn't have been inside the classrooms. I learned so much from FTII. I may not have written much in that year, because or I managed to make some submissions for the sake of of completing my course. uh, but I do know that the exposure that I got in the campus, especially because I was able to watch such diverse cinema, which now perhaps is very easily accessible. But I went to the film school in 2007. Between 2007 and 2009 is when I was largely lurking in the campus. And those films were very rare to see. So what it did for me was that, uh, every evening to have watched a great world cinema classic uh in the MT, which is called, which is the main theater. Like almost every second day I have seen a film either there or at the archives. And I it will still take me a few years to kind of like sit down and break it down rationally and scientifically what it did to me, because that exposure and the standard that it set for me for storytelling uh, has, like, I think just changed the way I look at life itself. I also want to say something about my background, not so much in watching films, but in reading literature that kind of helped me immediately naturally progress to world cinema, because I think I feel that that was a more natural sort of like successor to the kind of storytelling that first I was like, I believe was great storytelling. It I got it from the novels and the books, not and literature, but not so much from the films that I had seen till then. And I had seen a lot. Like I'd seen everything that a regular Delhi girl would have seen. So it's not like I was starved of watching films. It wasn't either or. But I think it was the Ignatius, whatever I deemed as great storytelling was something that I thought was coming from my foundation in literature. And I think it was a natural extension of what then I saw at FTII with the exposure that I had to the all the masters. And when I saw my first Tarkovsky, or when I saw Solaris, or when I saw Bergman, and I think those impressions, and however fake or dubious I may sound, I honestly find if you have the grammar in your head to break down a literary structure, I think it is actually very easy to access these films. So they are not, while they are like great masterpieces, I don't see why people think that people who like these films are pretentious, because I would like to believe that actually these films are supposed to catalyze you into uh, great emotional catharsis. So for me, it was like it felt like it was that was what I did in my FTI year. Honestly, that was something that I learned. Of course, there was a lot of exposure to how to write a screenplay. There were My program was designed around it. But I have like I the reason why it's not because of the failure of the program that I say it like that. I'm just saying that I don't think I really knew how to write a screenplay just because I studied like a year and a half or 2 years of screenwriting in the institute. That's I mean, yeah, I knew how to format it or like which software to like buy. But outside of that, I think without a doubt, it is Bombay that has taught me how to write a screenplay. It is just the fact that I've been at it relentlessly, and the fact that I've failed so much and so often that I have forced myself to go back and teach myself the tools of screenwriting. It's literally in that sense. Therefore, I feel it's one of those muscles, right? Like there are things like you need to swim to know how to swim. Like you need to cook to know how to cook, and you need to screenwrite to know how to screenwrite. There are instructions that you can take from the outside after you've done it a bit on your own, but nothing will make you learn faster than your own brutal need to survive. Like when you are like drowning, how you learn how to swim. I think perhaps this kind of like external pressure that the city provides on you, like like makes you want to like learn this faster for yourself, because you're like, oh god. uh so I honestly, like, I'm so grateful to everybody who made me work for free in the beginning years, because in the process they gave me such brilliant lessons, and that is what apprenticeship is largely about, so I mean, I now know that I'm so glad, and these kids are so fortunate that they don't have to actually go through the unpaid gigs. And in our case, it was like these were blind years. Like these were like what, like 8 years of my career when I was like either very poorly paid or not paid. Most of the work wouldn't go through. So, so now when I see kids getting on to jobs which are like protected through contracts, their credits, even though they're like uh, basic credits, but the credits are protected, their money is, there is always there's some kind of like payment at the end of the gig. So these are just such amazing radical changes that I've witnessed in the like what, like 2 generations that I've been part of this. But yeah, when we were doing this in the beginning, I am actually grateful that the fact that it was, because it was easy for people to exploit people like us. In the bargain, I must have gained so much, because I think if I can use one good adjective for myself, for a change, outside of being self-deprecating all the time, is that I think I was very seeking, Ishan. I was very seeking. I still am. I feel I still don't know enough, and I, s- I have so much to learn. And the best part about screenwriting is that, or film writing, is that it's not a finite. sort of like a career qualification. It's not like, oh, you have now done this and you can retire. This is an ongoing, it's like living life. So you, it just keeps evolving, and you have to evolve with the time and the genre, or perhaps like ripen the kind of effect you want your story to have. So as you will age and mature and ripe, so will your story. And thus there is no like, and this is not a career in that sense that, now I have gratuity fund waiting for me. This is more like about continuing to trying uh, to get better at the skill that is at hand. So for me, I feel this is like, uh, maybe that keeps me also really like hungry. And I also, I'm the type of, just generally, like, as a personality type, I'm super slow, but I'm also super focused. So I have my own goals that are like, have always been set away from everyone around me. I never, it's uh of course there are times when I do have experience heartburns when I see my rivals you know making a certain kind of, making themselves part of a certain kind of cinema, and like making early successes. I used to have like hard feelings about it earlier. Now I think I'm okay, because especially the last 2 years and last 1 year, things have been pretty bad in Bombay, like in industry. It's like pretty much a recession. So now I actually have like let go of that hardness that I had, or judgment that I had about some others. I think people should just do whatever they want to do. My thing is that I should be just left alone to do what I want to do. As long as there is an opportunity, I will try to to make it work. And yeah, some, of course, and these are also combinations and permutations. I'm not saying every opportunity that comes my way has been a success. Uh, but we have seen the releases, so we know some of them, we managed to do something with them. I have, over the last 15 years, as generally as progression of personality, used to be, I used to be perhaps would come off as more brittle and aggressive. And now I think over a period of time, I've just become even uh, perhaps more robust with what I want. Just come off as a little softer from the outside, because maybe perhaps I've developed a skill of how to negotiate better. But just that may be the only difference from the outside. That I think I'm more at ease with my struggle. I just, because if you want to say something right, this market is not, we know that there are more chances than there were before, but this market is never like fully wholly supportive of you, so you will have to be a little maverick about how to then make things work for you. Once you, I think I've accepted that that's the way it is going to be, and I think there's a bit of calmness to the way we are sort of taking the struggle forward. That's where I'm at my career right now. There is actually a film in the cinemas right now. I'm very proud of the film, because what I was able to do with respect to for the lens for the female protagonist, for the kind of gender nuance that we have been able to do in a very mainstream film, which had like its non-negotiables. There's certain things that you can't do, like, you, this is not an indie film, I'm not writing an agra. So so within that, whatever we could do, like the smallest things, a word here, a glance there, um like how to open the scene, etc., anything that we could do to just like add a little more sort of nuance to it. I'm so glad I got the opportunity to do it. It was well appreciated. I got producers who, while they gave me like my boundaries, they also gave me freedom. And I think this itself is like something to celebrate, because to have that, take that kind of risk for a theatrical is like huge, considering the film is actually not doing well at the theaters right now. I was a little sad about it for a day, but then we've made a good film, so I would, it's like, it's okay, Abhi. the film will release on Netflix, and then again we'll have that, there will be an audience that will come with it. So inshallah, we'll just keep moving on and keep doing what we can, because I think idea is to commit to the process and not so much to the outcomes. So while one would hope that the outcomes will actually help us find better opportunities along the way, because if this film would have made at least like a decent box office, it would have been slightly more easier to like go back to a studio and say, hey, we worked on this film, it did okay business, so can you give us development money for the next one which is on similar lines, or like is a female led film. But that kind of business you can't completely be oblivious of. That would be too naive. But yeah, you can't also be obsessed with it. Like you still will have to do what you are designed to do.
That's very true. And uh, आपने बिल्कुल ठीक बोला कि you have to accept the struggle, and that you have to be more open that it's all about choices other people make.
Yeah.
They can get easy success nowadays because maybe the politics on their side, or the
Yes.
kind of cinema that is being consumed by the majority today. And it's much easy to write a propaganda cinema because you don't have to do anything. You just have to put
Correct.
some symbolicisms and semiotics से थोड़ा सा काम करके you can create
Can I say something like only I'll
a
just
big,
add something to that what you're
yeah,
just saying, like in terms of only a liberal can say this. The person on the other side of this liberal point of view won't say this, and which is where I think I have been told that this is where liberals maar khate hain. But the thing is, I believe that not everybody is actually just jumping on the bandwagon to write a quick propaganda film. I do believe that there are some voices that actually were always aligned to that political view. They actually are writing what they who they are. Like they are not betraying, they are revealing. There's a difference. So that's the other litmus test that is at display. People are not doing this because they didn't have work for 5 years and now they've got one opportunity. How will they let go? And those, every colleague of mine who has been in that situation, I have actually have privately, I've held a lot of sympathy for everyone who didn't have work and then propaganda film भी आई तो लिखनी पड़ी तो करना पड़ेगा. And oh, I hope I'm never in that place, but maybe who knows? Maybe if someone's threatening me or put a gun on my head, who knows? If we'd ever reach that point in the country that we are in, we all may have to do something like that. It has happened. We have all seen. Like suddenly like a, I mean, I don't know exactly the reason, but when I saw Shehla Rashid like suddenly become like very uh sort of pro propaganda, I was
yeah,
confused because I was like, what happened? Is like someone in her family is kidnapped? What just happened? Like how can there be such a
yeah.
dramatic change? So I imagine like a full film around there. But or was it like a move where she realized that that's the only way she will come up in the JNK politics? Is that the
Yeah.
only way that she's looking at herself as a next chief minister, and this is like something she's developing 10 years from now, 15 years from now as a career move? Either way, I was very patient and understanding. Like we live in a world which is so complex now that it would be I think it would be naive to just look at it like that. So for every colleague of mine who has possibly suddenly become a part of the propaganda film because they wanted to pay their rents, I'm okay. But everyone else who's actually made a skillful film and like a well-crafted film around those subjects, they already were who they are.
Correct.
So there should be no miscalculation of someone's pressuring them. They're just like this is their time. So that's the other way to look at it, right? Like so,
It is also the time of hyper masculinity in the industry.
yeah.
You are finding scripts which are hyper masculine in nature. For example, a film like Animal coming in, or Kabir Singh coming in these times. It talks a lot about the politics of the time, I believe. The frustration of of genders being expressed by these writers in their own way. How do you see films like Animal coming out in these times?
This it has been a it was a whole phase where of course we've all have had meltdowns, some on social media, some on like privately. We've had like discussions repeatedly over that 1 month with friends where some people actually didn't mind the film or they were indifferent to it. Some people didn't understand why some of us were like more touchy about it, etc., or where it was coming from. Just I don't know if I'm like an expert on these things, but I think from as a practitioner I know that this is the hypermasculine form of cinema is definitely not that it did not exist before, but it definitely got transplanted from Hyderabad, somewhere in that southern industry where there were these films that were being made. And if you see, like Vanga himself is from, that state. So this is a formula that works in a certain kind of market, with a certain in a certain kind of form. Now it was actually just it's like it's like the cheetah that has been brought from South Africa, but ironically this cheetah is doing really well in Bombay, instead of dying. So that's it's something that has been taken from there and then artificially sort of like sowed in this soil, and it's doing well. And so it has suddenly become the new parameter against which it's not just the feminists like me, like I'm putting myself in quote unquote, who are struggling or like appalled by. All of Bollywood is like really crashing against that standard that has been created, because everyone is a little privately appalled because it's not okay. Yeah, maybe they don't actually have any gender politics at place, but what the Wanga ask of things is a bit too heightened for even the regular Bollywood people. But like, yeah. So, so everybody is a little frazzled right now with what it has done in terms of like the masalafication of what the cinema that works. It has put a lot of us like wondering what will actually work. Forget about like, okay, Ulaj didn't work, but neither did like some of the other films that have released, like, Chote Miyan Bade Miyan didn't work. Sarfira didn't work. So there are Akshay films that didn't work, like Selfie, something that you know what I'm saying? So films have stopped working, and there is that one kind of formula that works. It is something that we need to like obviously examine, uh,
Yeah,
but collectively, yes, we have reached a point because of, I mean, it's pretty it's like the one of the most unnuanced way of looking at it is it's like a very post pandemic viewing habit which we are like
hmm.
all struggling with. People have just become easy about not going to the theaters anymore.
Yeah,
Everything is, so easily available. We have now developed a new habit of watching, and so we are all sort of struggling with it also. I think because there's filmmakers are sort of like also guilty of a lot of navel gazing. So we all believe that the whole world is dependent on films. But actually, that's not true. Like, people want to do other things, and people are just exhausted of watching films that are basically or stories that are not giving you anything new. So if it can be watched later at the comfort of your own house, at the comfort of your own time, people don't really want to buy that ticket. And it's no, I don't think it's even about money. It's just about using your time. You don't want to waste that time. And so of course the myth of that sort of cinema, that the pull that it had, or the magic or the curiosity that people had about stars, is now all gone. We are all of us are like nothing but a reel, and all of us are every actor is so overexposed, and there is anyway like that exhaustion. If you are already watching a lot of this particular beautiful starlet on your Instagram, why do you then also want to take like 2 years, two hours of like a Friday night, watching the same person on in theater again? You actually want to take those 2 hours and perhaps go out uh, with friends, or there are actually the one of the other ways that it's I've not done this study, but it's my assumption from the way I look at life. Like, people are also like serial dating because there are all these apps that are at work. And I think films are not really struggling against other films, or like films are struggling against like the number of dates that people have to finish on the weekend. So either you go on a film with your date, or you just go on the date. So that is also the other reason. There's so many other things to do. And like there is like solid Instagram uh social media addiction at play, that people are so used to watching real size content now, which is far more consumable. इस पे पैसे नहीं लग रहे हैं. It's right there. uh, than actually watching a whole film where one will have to invest. And there are, and because the quality is pretty much mediocre, there is there is that, the all the your firang content that's so easily available, which is far better for the time that you're going to invest in these films. So it's just basically like, why should I go watch a 2 hour film on a Friday night? So I think these are this is sort of like the advent of like a new modern life that is at play. And we all have to humbly accept that film is not the center of the world. No one cares about these stars anymore. No one is in awe of actors anymore. Everyone can, like, buy themselves great makeup and like look like a star. Everyone can photoshop themselves and put themselves on Instagram. Everyone can have a Instagram following and actually uh, be, more, in that sense, more popular than, let's say, like an NSD trained actor. I know, just to add to that, like, I know that actors have so much pressure on them to have followings, because it's the YouTubers and, like, Instagrammers who actually get sometimes jobs. If I wouldn't say for all kinds of main parts, but if there's an ensemble, then a YouTuber with a larger following will actually nix the chance of somebody who's actually an NSD trained actor but doesn't have too much following. And this is the reality that we are living in. People want to cast influencers in their shows, especially for digital platforms, because the minute it's a digital show, if it's advertised on social media through an Instagram reel, then you're getting as many eyeballs. There have been, Ishan, like, I've also have in the last 2 years, I've also have had moments where I really thought I was living under the rock. There are some people who were so famous, some actors or like some influencers, they were so famous and I had no idea who they were, and they were then cast in certain series as leads. And it was like, I just like kept gawking at the fact that, oh my god, I don't even know I've come from a certain screening or a premiere. I have no idea who these people are. I've never seen them, but they are mobbed, and everyone thinks they have got like a casting coup of this decade. So it was, but then I realized there's no point in me looking down at this practice. This is the new practice. This is the new, it must be the same thing. Like, it's like a lot of, there were years when we all thought it is terrible to have songs in our films. And but then over a period of time we all got around it and found a way around it. There is no wishing away some of these things. So I think as resourceful and also then there is the other thing that's happening while we are also like rapidly decaying. We are also rapidly going into the future with the AI looking at us. And that is also definitely threatening the way we're going to look at cinema. How cinema will be made will change, which means the business format is about to radically change in 5 years. And there is nothing that you and I will be able to do, however much we may change policy in India, etc. There is no way we will be able to bring in the kind of policy control that, let's say, a Writers Guild of America has been able to, uh, because in India, I mean, of course, actors will be easily replaced through their AI. Like, come on, like, who are you fooling? So in India, there that it's going, by the time there is a policy in place, a lot would have already gone to the dogs. And of course, the writers are going to really suffer. They already must. I think they're already suffering. Every room assist right now is replaced by ChatGPT, or like it's everything that you can get like ChatGPT do for you for at least like in like uh, 1/10 the time. Then why would you also want to give employment to two more young kids? And if two more young kids are not employed, then how will they learn the ropes of the job? So this is where India is at. It's a very unique combination of, anyway, like demand supply that is very skewed, and then in that then you throw in like a very advanced technology. So we'll see where we are at as the dust settles, and then we'll find out.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was taught recently, which is something, is a learned behavior, because I was also very afraid of AI. But something that I like heard and that helped me adapt to this is that instead of fearing the advent of the AI, we should welcome it, and we should understand what can we do to use it nobly. Like, instead of fearing it to an extent that it just becomes like we don't want to become like the JK Rowling of this, of just fearing it for no reason. Like, we have to adapt ourselves to modernity in a way that it continues to stay useful, and it's rationed out well. So that is the other attitude that we need to bring to screenwriting, or what AI is now looking to do or threaten screenwriting with, in India, especially considering there will be no rules for a while in India. Uh, so this is the interface we are at, and yeah, we are all growing, evolving together. And it's been very tough the last 1 year for a lot of my peers to make money, and
Yeah.
so it's uh, it's like literally like I would happily declare it as a year of some kind of like soft recession.
No, it's these are dangerous times actually, and I think we'll have to go much down the hill before we go up. We haven't hit the rock bottom yet, and I don't know how bad the rock bottom would be, but I think we'll have to go in order to rise up. But another question that I think is important to ask is, there are films on, which are female-centric and women-led films, but those are written by men. And especially when we talk about the new wave in 1970s, we talk about the strong female characters played by Smita, Shabana, and others, great actors of their times. But
Hmm.
those are essentially written by Atulji and
Hmm.
other male writers. The female voice was always given by the male. The agency was gifted to the female in film, as something to be very proud of. But now, when you are writing the female characters, how different is the approach when you compare the two?
I do know that a lot of Sham Benegal films were being co-written with Shama Zaidi.
Shama, yeah.
So I do think that there was a very powerful voice who was distributing sort of like power for or agency for some of these strong female progressive characters that we have seen in those times. Uh, I uh, I I'm not so this is a very nuanced conversation. There are two aspects to feminism here. One is just the general employment of women in like workforces. So do I want more of women to be hired for more jobs in the industry? Yes. Does it lead to more feminist voices, or more sort of like uh, gender neutral work? Partly, yes. Does every woman who get hired to do a female centric job is a feminist by nature, or by cultivated thought? No. That's the thing. So just because there are so this is where it becomes a slightly like an ambiguous, tricky place. So I'm not saying yes, when women write women, it is a very special experience. You can see it in the way they are intimately crafted. Also, the way women arrive at their third acts. how what exactly is the outcome of the narrative is something like that's so all these things when women take it through, it's a very different experience of the world, because women are in that sense conditioned to be negotiators. They're always negotiating with the social limitations they're born in, and all of this deftness, some of us fight, some of us adapt, but most of us are negotiating. And this same skill then shows in the way we build our stories, we view the world. It also has very different narrative outcomes. Now, this this is the thing. This is a very nuanced lens. Then, not every, just because you make a story about four women and it's directed by a woman, not necessarily sometimes leads to feminist outcome, is also what we are at. But this is the thing. Then it becomes a matter of what will you support? Do I still support the employment of five of those women who I know in the world who got employed for these jobs, made a successful show, even if it was for the service of male gaze? I think so, yes. So this is something that I've arrived at after a period of some processing, because earlier I used to feel a little disturbed with anything that was being touted as feminist. Not everything that has women in it is feminist, or not everything made by women is feminist. Uh, there will be few examples, like, of the men who made those films in the 70s, who have actually managed to make some really feminist, strong feminist films, even though they were men. So I think it was about calibrating the politics right of it. And if actually, I have something really something that I just thought of, which is, I think it's I'm glad you asked me this question. If the men are actually genuinely concerned about equality, then by accident the product that you will have is feminist, because feminism does not mean that the man is dominating the woman or the woman is dominating the man. So by if a man is wired or primed towards telling a story where he's willing to forsake the space that is he's and he is just entitled, he thinks he has been entitled to, and forsaking the space that he does not merit, that itself brings back equality into the frame. The minute that happens by accident, it becomes a feminist piece. So I think if men only knew their place in the world, that's all they need to do. They don't even have to like become overtly feminist. If men only would know that this is not my right, this is I'm crossing a line, this is where I need to let the other person feel equal, this is how this happens, automatically the world will become equal. So I feel, some maybe if you look at it like that, maybe those men were trying to check themselves. um and every Sham Benegal film is about, like, those narratives are about where, where they're questioning um class conflict, gender. So it wasn't an accident, na Ishan. Like, when we all saw Manthan recently, we realized what a fucking progressive film it was for that time. And like, there's so many aspects that were. There was like an adulterous relationship, which was the core of it. There were so many beautiful things and there was so much of like this, exploitative, like, like this Shahri Babu will come and like the Gaon ki Gori will fall in love with him. I felt that how beautifully it was all like out there for you to investigate and like participate in, like each of this trope, uh and in each arc there was something that was unusual with the way it ended. So it felt like all characters were asked to investigate their own personal hypocrisy, which I think was a great win. And I didn't mind if a man told it. What I liked was that the man was constantly questioning himself through in that narrative. It became a feminist narrative, right? Is largely what I look
Yes.
at. So this is how I read the world. There have, like for example, in Ulaj, where you know we I did what I could, but I know that there are parts of it which I wouldn't use the word save, but I mean I wouldn't want to be harsh in the film, but I also know that we were struggling with something. There were certain things about the screenplay that that were very important for the story to make sense as a thriller. Now, and they were by nature very difficult to like narrativize in the way I would imagine them from scratch. So there were parts where I had to let go. Like I couldn't save every part of our agency in the film. But then that's what it's. You would rather. What would you want to do? Like I've asked myself, would you have not want to be a part of a film like that, or but I think you would rather fight that war and win it halfway than to just totally like
Yeah.
let the film go in the direction that it should. Because this is then this is that quandary we are at.
Mm.
What to do? Like you can just like stay idealistic in your own room and do nothing, or you participate in things and like you fail some. So
No, and related to this, how do you write the male characters, especially when we are talking about Ulaj, the father's character,
hmm.
and the response of the daughter of saving the pride of the father in Ulaj, that burden of saving the family's pride and how proud her father would be on her. How do you write that character? Or also in Agra, that male lead, how did you work on those characters?
In both the cases we were collaborating, so I had like definitely the anchorage of in each instance my male director's point of view. And in both cases the reason why both my directors I think wanted a female perspective, a strong female perspective on board, is so that I can continue to contest it, challenge it, nourish it, continue to like stay representative of where I am at as a woman, how I am looking at it if I am the voice. So that is how we did it. That there was a very conscious reason to counter each other and account for that on paper, where both parties should sound reasonable. And the negotiation is a of that of patriarchy, but looking at patriarchy is also like healthy patriarchy. So this is what we had to do, for example, in Ulaj, where we are not saying everyone, we can't be woke from beat one, something you arrive at. Like so but we are also saying that this is just deep toxicity that we are all sort of a part of, and this is our starting point of the film. And do we arrive at something better, halfway better, was the journey of the film. So that's how we do it. That's how you actually, in most of the some of the constructive films that you will see that there have been voices that are representative of these different worldviews. And so that is why it looks thought through when you see the film.
And that's what I like about Ulaj. It's not a flag bearing, film that shows everything in a wide lens, but it talks about the nuances. It talks about the little detailing that you have given in the screenplay itself or the dialogue itself. That tells you that it's a effort towards a progressive mainstream film, and that's why it should be watched by as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Because it's not that you would find in any other women-led films that are being written, because so a few propaganda films are also female-driven, in Bastar being one, and then I think the Jahangir National University, all sorts of films. And I have to watch all films, because then in order to criticize, you have to also watch all the all these films, waste a lot of money. But if you have to really spend money, and I've all asked everybody to whom I have met to watch this film at least, so that they'll see what's there for us in future. This is a beginning, and I hope that we'll have more. The new wave of 2030 would be a different new wave from 1970s, where
Yeah.
we'll have all sorts of people joining us from all backgrounds, not just urban backgrounds, but rural backgrounds, people of different languages, different backgrounds writing their stuff. I also open the floor for people to ask questions. If they have questions, they can use raise hand option. How do you see film? How do you read films, Atika, as a screenwriter? When you watch a film, what are the elements that catch your eye?
I definitely look at character arcs very closely. I look at where does a character start at the beginning of the film and what is the midpoint and where does it end. I think that also helps us understand narratively what did the film say. So for me now, the film definitely breaks down into that as my first principal way of entering a film. The other things have become less important. Like, for example, everything else that a normal viewer will now watch it for example, performances, moments, songs, camera, etc. That has somehow become less important because the only time I notice it when it's not done well, because if some a meaning should have been conveyed and it hasn't been, obviously that is why it was jarring. That is why I'm wondering, why did you suddenly move the camera that way? Because the meaning changed. And so that is the only time. Otherwise, I think a lot of it is now because the brain has become like, it has internalized a language uh, knowingly or unknowingly so much that now I
Yeah,
don't focus so much on that. But for me, I immediately break the structure. For me, that's how I access it. That's how I read a film. I think every screenwriting aspirant perhaps will find this beneficial if they also look at anything that they see as a three-part structure, or whichever, how many part structure, but a structure. And that may help. Yeah.
that's wonderful. Shrutanu, you go ahead with your question.
Hey,
I'll
Atika,
put it up
thanks for
on.
coming for this. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
First of all, thank you for coming for this. At least for me, I am interacting first time with a professional screenplay artist, if I may use the word, and you've been extremely articulate and very open and frank in your observations. So thank you for that. That said, I got two, three small questions and an observation. Let me start with the observation. Just a few days back, I was talking to somebody from an investment banking community, and the chat was to actually short PVR. Uh,
What?
to short PVR, PVR distribution, it's a listed company.
To what?
PVR Inox,
So what is the word you're using to short, as in to
you actually sell them.
to short PVR? Okay.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
betting against the stock price, betting against the company.
Ah,
hearing you and the
So
whole
it's a
AI,
market
it's a technical lingo, but
word.
let's move on from that. But the point is, hearing your talk about AI, hearing you talk about short span content
hmm.
proliferation that we're seeing in social media.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a bad thought. Here will be the Eastman Kodaks of the world. It's a good footnote in the film history, but may not last very long. But that's it. Let me come back to the specific questions.
Hmm.
First question. Thanks to Ishan, we saw Margarita with the straw. And I know you said that you were credited for writing Hindi dialogues, but I'm sure you're part of the whole creative process of the screenplay. So,
After a certain stage, yes. So yeah, yes.
So my question was to a one specific dialogue or one particular scene where Margaret and her mother were talking, and she's first
Glenda
time
and her
was
mother.
coming out, and she's saying a bye, and the mother says bye, maybe the bye tea, and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
But that was such a incredible line. It was such an incredible line.
Hmm.
That's you, or that's a part of the whole creative process. How did that thought come across? Just share with us.
I think that line was not mine. That line was Nilesh's. He was one of the co-writers on the film. And we had a moment like that, and it was like I think it was a part of the improv. And the idea was that there was already that structural and the character understanding that she is already lying about being a bisexual. And so it was something that happened in the improvs. Like it wasn't something that was on paper, it wasn't part of the script. And then it happened. So they went with it. So that was a line that I did not write actually.
Well, that was a lovely line. All of you should take credit for that.
It is
Second question. Sorry.
the thing is that there is an environment that screenplay writers create together for a film to have those money dialogues. That's why it's I don't feel bad about ever not acknowledging my colleagues, because it's not like that makes me a lesser writer, because we've all created that environment for those lines to come up.
Correct.
Like we
It's
create
a
scenes. So
I understand that whole screenplay in a sense. Well, there is a specificity of an individual screenplay writer or a dialogue writer, but it is a collaborative process. So
yes,
that environment was there.
yes.
Second question. Uh, if I sort of simplify your work, and I would say that most of your work, the ones that I've read and ones that I've seen, seem to be pretty much woman centric. Nothing wrong with that. But would it be unfair to say that that is also your comfort zone? So are you searching something outside your comfort zone, which is not a woman centric, may not be necessarily to the other extreme of like an animal, but are you working on thinking of adventuring out from the boundaries or not boundaries is the wrong word. Let's say, for lack of a better word, let's use boundaries. Boundaries that you've set yourself so far.
uh this is an easy one to answer. No, I just want to be able to say what I know best. Because I think that there's such scarce work in the area that I am at. That if I also start doing mainstream male narratives, then female narratives कौन करेगा? वो तो वैसे
No,
ही
not necessarily male narratives or mainstream. It could be
मैं
something else.
genre writer नहीं हूँ. Like I have,
Hmm.
if that answers your question, I'm not exactly like a very genre crazy writer. So that also is something that is a limitation. I can work in collaboration with people who understand genres really well. Like for example, someone's writing a science fiction or someone's writing a thriller. Now it's not. My way of narrativizing a thriller would be very different from the way Ulaj has been conceived, for example. That's I feel it's a very it's a and I, this is just to define it. This is not to say that I'm being derogatory, but it's a very hard male narrative. Ulaj, it's a very hard male narrative. I wouldn't write the same story in that manner. My story would be very personal and intimate, even while writing a thriller like that. So like it's like one quick example of this is like what Catherine Bigelow did with Zero Dark 30. That's the way a woman writes a film like that. Like it's a spy, it's like an officer who's like pretty much doing like caught in like a conflict like that and like going through a personal quandary. How and is sort of watching like this like a very big dramatic event that has like created so much ruckus in our history, but all of this happens through the lens of a woman, and only in that last 10 minutes when we go into that big set piece of capturing Obama. It's not so outside of that it was largely something really personal. So is 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 something that I would suggest is how women write differently from men. I'm not saying there is one. There will be examples of where women have also done like very strong hard narratives. Uh, it's like how Chloe Zhao has done like the superhero films. Like look at her version. It's a very poetic sort of like look at it, but how Denis Villeneuve will do a Dune, while that is one of my most favorite films, but you just look at the structure. So it's just like how people enter structure given their gender lens. Now taking it all of this as context to answer your question, if there are certain things that I have identified as my voice, I wouldn't want it to erase just so that I can like accommodate genre.
Fair enough. And that sort of underlines the integrity to yourself and integrity to your craft. So let me end with the last question, which will be of interest to all of us. Can you give us suggestions of three movies which are, as per you, are the gold standards for screenplay?
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Anything that Charlie Kaufman has written, especially before he started directing. Every screenplay is available online. Just grab them, read them, watch the films again. Um, they're also very beautifully written screenplays, so they're a delight to read. So so I think that's the only screenplay school you need. Like even if it's just one screenplay. This film that I love, which is something I've been saying it for years now, and maybe I need to update some of the films that I now give as, but I still love it so much, is Prisoners. And it was directed by Denis Villeneuve. Just see that film, just see the structure, sit with it. Oh my God. There's third film that I love to my bones is Separation. And again, if you like sit with it and like break it down into a screenplay, one a little quick hack at all of you who are writing screenplay for the first time, want to write it, just like sit with your most favorite film and do a one line of it like you were writing the screenplay. So you fucking pause it, write what happened in the sequence, and then go to the next scene. Sit with what is happening, how is the drama flowing, and you will see, then that is when it will you will marvel at the brilliance of some of these screenplays, because you will see that you've been outfoxed. And there is and the fourth film that I'll quickly throw at you is perhaps, of course, any film that Aaron Sorkin has written. Again, like great screenplays. They are just brilliant screenplays. Also, the language that he uses, it is so personal. So when you read a lot of Aaron Sorkin, or what, for example, Greta Gerwig does on paper, what it does for you is it gives you like, for example, I am one of those screenwriters who possibly don't want to become a filmmaker immediately. So how do you like find your work fulfilling, for example? So you find your work fulfilling in the identity that your work has on paper, and these writers will amaze you with the identity that their words have, with the way they write their screenplays, with the way they establish the shots. You will see that their language itself is symptomatic of how their film shot division is. They already have a style on paper. So there is not just, yes, some of these Aaron Sorkin films in collaboration with Fincher became the films that they did become. But if you read Aaron Sorkin on paper, you would know that there is a lot of that style that was already there. He's already brought that style, and how it is consistent. That voice is consistent, starting from like West Wing or like Network and some of that stuff, all the way till like Social Network and after that also. So you see that there is that consistency of voice. And so the reading such screenplays with like where the voice of the writer is really strong on paper gives you confidence to then develop your own style.
Thank you. That was lovely.
Thank you, Shatanu, Prashant.
Yeah. Hi, Adika. Thanks for joining and uh, uh, illuminating the whole side of the screenwriting process. My question is really actually interesting that you mentioned Aaron Sorkin, because that was where I was coming from. When I'm watching a film, and given that if I don't have the luxury of watching a film repeatedly, how do I separate the screenwriter from the director when I'm appreciating, when I'm watching a movie? I'm saying, oh, this is a great screenwriter, this is a great director. And actually, I was going to refer to Aaron Sorkin because in his films it's easy, mainly because I feel that his the way he writes his characters and the way he puts his like very smart alecky dialogue, for like, I mean, just in most of his films, it's easy to see that this is a writer's
Hmm.
skill coming out. But where those layers are not there, where it's not that snappy
Hmm.
stuff that Aaron Sorkin does, how do I say that this is great writing and not great directing? You know, like how does one do that? And I'm coming at it from more from the commercial film or the mainstream side of it, not as much for the
Yeah.
parallel film sort of.
I think the answer to both mainstream and indie world would be the same. It's about, if you are able to look at the structure of a film and see, if you focus on the scene design and the scene flow, you will know that that's a writer's work. It always depends on, like, for example, some films are very strongly dominated by directors, and the directors, if they have sat down with the writer and then dictated them the structure, then I think I would look at it like as a director's film. But if you know, for example, which credits you are looking at, and then you're like trying to identify the work of what a writer must have brought to it and what a director must have brought to it, then I can say that even for an Aaron Sorkin, like I would be very watchful of just dismissing him for, or just like reducing him to good dialogues, because he's actually, all his dialogues are just actually, he has that style, does not mean that he doesn't have a very strong understanding of how his narrative flows, how his conflict moves, so that is why
I meant that was his signature. So I can sense an Aaron Sorkin film because of the dialogue, and
correct,
like even without knowing the credit. I mean, it sounds like that. Like in
correct,
it, in
correct,
actually
but
that show that he had done, Studio 60. I don't know if you've seen that, but it was one of his. I mean, it was quite a freaky show, and it was very very smart alecky dialogue, and that's when I noticed a writer first, probably at that level, and then I saw him do that in Facebook. I mean, in social network,
social network, yeah. No,
and
so, yeah, so largely, but I mean, let's then, okay, let's keep Park Aaron Sorkin aside, and then I would say that I think a writer would be more noticeable for the work that they do on narrative and structure, and a director in that sense.
so is it in the pace of a movie? Is it in that scenes are there's no boring element? But I mean, could that also be a director or an editor?
No, actually, the pace of a film is so much something that the director defines. While a writer may want to write something fast and pacey, so many times it can feel like a slow burn if a director wants it that way. Uh, I think in a let's just, I think a safe subject to talk about is a drama. Let's not go into genre, because genre then comes with its own mood already. Like there's an inherent mood to it. But like, let's say a drama, which then can you it is definitely then, a director can do so much to it. Like a director, there is so much that a writer has not actually thought of on paper, except for like, this is the dramatic flow of things, and this is how emotional distribution has to happen to reach a certain point like this is our main plot point one. This is what happens. This is what the principal character finds out by 15th minute of the film. If that's the work that the writer has done, then but the director can bring so much to this. The director can make you hold your breath with just about the way he has paced things up, and or what is he dwelling on more, what is he dwelling on less. There's so much of edit that happens, which again the director defines the pace of it. uh, the way it's shot, the lens, the eyes, also again, there's sometimes the directors give extreme liberty to their DOPs, because they have that kind of like trust relationship with their DOPs. They want their DOPs to interpret the film a certain way, but some directors actually hold their DOPs really close, like really really close. So I feel it's a there is this is the beauty of the line of work we are in. There it's a different film or a different thing with each project, except for, yes, of course, like I'm definitely not an Aaron Sorkin, but how you can see that there is one kind of thing that Atika does, like, so there is that something that we will bring to it, which is a very personality based thing. And like you were saying, you can hear an Aaron Sorkin film, uh, or a Kaufman film. You know it from a distance. So that's what. So I feel outside of that, each combination of a writer director will bring different qualities to the final narrative. I have in the same year, I was like, last year it was funny because a lot of people were like, how can you write Sahela and Agra? And I was like, yeah,
That's
because I
my
worked with
actually the next
different
question.
directors. I
Yeah.
worked with different directors, and they are as different, as diverse as the films that they represent. So for me to find that commonality between different kinds of people, find my common ground is what I do.
Yeah, I think if Sutanu sees Agra, that question he asked you earlier would probably not have popped.
Would change. Yes, that's true.
So,
We'll take one more question in
okay,
the interest of time.
someone else has a question, then I'll drop. I mean, I'll stop.
You can ask.
Anamika,
Yeah, you can.
okay.
So yeah, it was just a thing that you mentioned some international films in that list. Are there any screenwriters or films that you would recommend from the Indian
I
Any
love
any
Sudeep's work.
language, any
I
language.
love Sudeep's work. I think that's the gold, India
Sudeep
gold that
who?
I have. Sudeep Sharma.
Okay.
I love Sudeep Sharma's work. NH10 and Patal Lok. Uh, I mean, it's not like I don't like others' work. Like I think what Juhi did in October, the last 30 minutes of October is my favorite Hindi cinema that I have seen. And of course, there are lots of these South Indian, right? But I mean, so those guys are great, but I'm not, I really respect my peers. I look up to everyone. But these were those moments that I am a fan. I really look up to Sudeep. He doesn't even know me, but I really look up to his work. I love the efficiency and I like that there is so much work that he puts in into his screenplays and it shows. And then I would like to get there if I'm not there already. So that's something. And then what Juhi did with the last 30 minutes of October i- is is something that I have not seen in Hindi cinema.
Thank you.
It's my opinion. Again, these are just opinion based things.
Thank you, Prashant. Over to Anamika ji. You have to unmute.
So sorry. Do I have time?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Atika, thank you so much for coming here. You are absolutely eloquent and wonderfully uh, fantastic with your words, which is, of course, your work. I have a completely different question than what has been asked so far. My question comes from when you imagine your screenplay and the trajectory and scenes, do you also imagine the light and the costume of the people, how they look like, how they stand? Especially, I'm more interested about the costume and the representation of the characters. Do you do that? Do you give notes on that? Or does that go majorly to the director's vision?
No, a writer can already imagine, like, for example, it also depends on the socioeconomy of the particular character, right? So sometimes, in fact, I am at conflict with my director because I think my characters have worn clothes, uh, which they have not earned according to their backstory. So that is obviously like that's one of the concerns. But most of the time, you know from the backstory as a writer, you know materially what was possible for them to wear on a certain day or in a certain scene. If a character is like going is someone aspirational and somebody who's envious and uh, then imagine that dressing. So therefore, uh, I don't know about other writers, but I am extremely aware of what my writers are wearing or what my characters are wearing all the time. Um, so if I wouldn't want it to like I wouldn't want to write something like as irritating as like, oh, white color, this and that. But if I know that it's something like it's like double discounted mall shopped. If I want to say something like that, I'm actually saying something about their situation in life. So why wouldn't I do that? Now that's something that is a great hint to my director, while
Okay.
we obviously can make other decisions around it. Sometimes some things are not written on paper, some things are discussed. Especially when you work in close
Look,
collaboration with directors, you already know, you've seen pictures, you've put research in place, you already know that Malti was wearing a certain kind of salwar kurta. So you already know where she comes from. You have researched the person you are about to uh, show on screen. So you don't want to, of course there will be some dramatic sanitization that comes with making a film, that certain filmmakers will want to show one notch up of where their character is in actual life, depending on how realistic their film is. But it can't deviate too far away from the world that you are showing. So while you can give, these are enough clues between a writer and a director.
uh, so that is the writer and the director, but I also wanted to know when you imagine How do you?
I have, I mean, if I could just give my example, uh, I imagine everything. I imagine the, if they're hoarders, if they're minimal, if they have like worn a dress 20 times, if they're uh, pinching some money so that they could like buy a dress at this moment. I imagine everything. For me, all of it is very important. I anyway like I'm painfully like that kind of person in my generally in my life. That's a writer's curse and a gift. So because I'm like such so thoroughly invested in details, uh
That's what I was about to say. It's so
yeah,
detailed. I saw that already. So I was just thinking, if you think that detailed manner as well.
I do. I like to sharply hint at it in the most economical way in my screenplays, and if I find that it's going to interfere with the collaboration and the kind of personalities I'm dealing with in a certain room, then what I do is I let I'll convey this to my directors. Like in case they're going to get irritated on paper and there's no time for us to like, now discuss like someone's brown pant in detail. We should then just have that discussion. Why it was important for me to like point out what clothes they were wearing. Largely, there is a certain broad understanding that like there is this one character. I'll give you throw a quick example at you. There's one character who's somebody who's been married to a woman, like a 40-year-old man who's been married to a woman because she's rich. There is some love, but there is also that there is a some kind of like a transaction. This man likes to believe that he's a liberal and leftist at heart, but at the same time, there is that sort of complicity to capitalism in his everyday life. What kind of clothes do you think he'll wear? He will have to wear clothes which represent his transaction, his complicity, because he also needs to, he's an accessory to the woman. So when he goes around in her world, where he goes to the clubs where she goes, and he needs to come across as her squeeze, he needs to either, so there will be two things. Either he is at conflict with that, and therefore he will wear clothes which are like as a form of protest. He's saying, I'm not going to wear anything which makes me look rich, or he's going to succumb to it fully. Now that's how I just defined it for you. Now you अब इसके अंदर once that clarity is there, you will know what this character will wear.
Thank you so much. That's a beautiful, beautiful answer. And yes, Ishan, sorry.
Thank you, Anamika ji, and thank you, Atika. Actually, when we thought of this workshop, as I mentioned, one of the main elements of the workshop was this conversation with film professionals, because this is what is missing in most of the film appreciation workshops across India, that they don't have this uh, interaction with the film world. And I think it is important, in order to appreciate a piece, you have to meet the writers. You should interact with the, of course, the filmmaker, the actors, other elements, which are off screen. They you don't see them on screen, but they are the main builders. Also, the costume. I would love to host a costume designer, a
Yes,
makeup artist, to talk about how those also play a role in the whole
yes,
narrative.
they do.
Uh, and we hope that in the future conversations we'll have those also joining us from Bombay or other cinemas to enlighten us. But why I thought of you as the first person to interact with the group was, you are among that rare breed of writers who have made their own way to this industry. It was a very difficult journey, and it's still a very difficult journey. The road, it's not very easy. It's Pather Panchali, as they would have call it. It's the road of the rural area. It's not a pure Pakka road. But I think you, Juhi, and other writers of our times are the hope. You are the disruptor who are challenging the set norms done by politicians as well as the writers and the filmmakers. It's a whole nexus that works together. Since a lot of our actors are now in the parliament, So we have to work it out in that way that the nexus would now be more stronger. But you all are those people who are trying to fight, and as Ravi said, not all battles are fought to be won. Some are fought just to say that they were there on
Yes,
the field.
yes,
So you are one of those who are on the field, writing mainstream films as well as non-mainstream, that art films for the film festivals that are watched by a certain by a by a a group of people. But the mainstream is the place where we need the real action to happen. So that's
correct,
why
correct.
I'd say Ulaj Chhapak. Chhapak was the first introduction for me to Atika. I didn't know her before Chhapak. After that, I got to know her. I met her last year in Mami Film Festival, and you are an inspiring figure. So thank you so much for being so fearless, so direct, so original.
Mm.
It's very difficult for somebody like you in the industry. We all know that, but you are going places now. So congratulations to all the successes that you are getting. And we wish that your next film, that I think is with Dev Patel or somebody, would come again with a big release, and we'll get to see more of you now.
Yes, I mean, I'm on it. Let's see what comes out of it. There is some work that's already in the pipeline, and inshallah, writing new work now. So we'll see. There's my own stories now. This year onwards, that will go into development. I'm carving out time where I can like balance out at least 25% of my work time this year towards my own screenplays. So now finally we have arrived at that sort of bank balance where we can do this.
That's so good to hear, and I hope that this would bring that revolution that we all are waiting for in the industry, because cinema is the most beautiful fraud in the world, as Coppola said. So we all have to believe in that, and every art is political, as Godard said. The angle at which you set your camera itself is a political decision. So the angle at which you put the nip of the pen is also a political decision. So fortunately, we are interacting with a person who is on the right side of the nib.
I'm on the
So,
left side of it.
so right in the sense
I'm
of
on the left
morality.
side.
Left is the right and right is wrong. So,
Left is the right, and right is the wrong, yes.
so
On that
that's
note,
what we have to do. And on that note, I hope that we'll have you again for another session. And I look forward to seeing you in Bombay and hosting you for different walks that we plan with you in Delhi, in Bombay, in whichever city. Thank you so much, Atika. And thank you so much,
thank you.
everybody, for
Love to be part of it every time, anytime, anywhere, in every possible way. You throw the best parties. These are the जब तक ये broadcast bill नहीं आ रहा है तब तक
That's true. नहीं, उसके बाद we'll do the underground thing, जैसे emergency में हुआ था. We'll do the underground broadcasting.